12 damage.
Only 12. With, presuming there's no noble hierarchs hanging around.
I'm thinking about on an 0-1 or a 1-1.
Okay. That's right. That's a good point. All right, so Galen, Lemei on your left, Phillip Contreras on your right. Pant Hexer versus Storm, the finals of Star City Sacramento. Legacy Open. We this morning we had our finals of the Standard Open between Wolf Run Ramp and Esper Control, and we ended up seeing Esper Control winning the matchup this morning. And so, which deck will join it? We will see. Get this match underway.
Okay, and so we have Galen Lemei. He has come a long way today, and one of the things that's so unusual about his deck, this is not Ant, this is not the Epic Storm. It's a very different kind of Storm deck. No Burning Wishes in here, only one Ad Nauseam. He's not an Iggy Pop deck either. What he really is just basically a very, very streamlined Storm deck where he's not looking for the versatility or the tricksiness of other Storm decks. It's just mana, some search, and then singleton copies of a bounce spell, Chain of Vapor, a tutor, Grim Tutor. This is a great tutor in some ways, but 3-life is real. One Ad Nauseam to refill, and one kill spell, Tendrils of Agony, and finally one Past in Flames. Other than that, just mana and search with a little bit of discard to make it all come together. Phillip Contreras, on the other hand, he came in here looking for Rancor, unable to find any in the room, and essentially it seems like a last-minute addition of Spectral Flight. One of the things about Spectral Flight, it is generally considered a Innistrad block limited card. But when you put Spectral Flight on a Geist of St. Traft, one of the concerns about Geist of St. Traft, people just block it. But it's much harder to block a 4/4 flyer. And so where a Rancor might have made it a 4/2 trampler that dies and brings you back to Rancor, perhaps there's something to be said about Spectral Flight. I would say the jury is still out, but it's actually pretty hard to get to the finals of an event like this if it's just a pure fluke. This event is larger than most of the PTQs that we've seen all throughout the country. Phillip Contreras has 8 hexproof creatures in his deck, 4 Geist of St. Traft, and 4 Troll Ascetic. Now, for those of you who are just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan. I'm joined here in the booth by Matthias Hunt, and this is the first game of the finals of the Star City Games Live Open Series Legacy portion here in Sacramento, California. You can reach both Matthias and I on Twitter. Matthias is MTG Matthias. You can see his spelling of his name in the lower right-hand corner. And I am Adrian L. Sullivan on the Twitter. You can also find me on Facebook at Adrian L. Sullivan. Both of these players, you can also reach the entire conversation about this event at hashtag SCGCA and always at SCG Live. Whoever's here in the booth will always be able to get that. That's the things that we'll be checking. And it's a better way to reach us here directly when it comes to the coverage as well. So Matthias, what would you say is the most important card for Phillip Contreras in this matchup?
This matchup for Phillip Contreras, I would say, well, there's 2 things. I think
Game one.
I'm going to go with Geist of St. Traft.
The clock.
The clock. The fast clock. Geist doesn't need any help being a fast clock. It'll have to be backed up by days, hopefully days and Spell Pierce, but Geist of St. Traft, I think, very important.
Okay, and then on the other side, what is the most important card for Galen in Game 1?
Galen, I would probably say, well, I'm going to go with Lion's Eye Diamond. There's not too much hate, and I would really love to have one of those hands that just wins on turns before turn 3 or earlier, and Lion's Eye Diamond is key to a lot of those hands.
So before you asked me once again if I still wanted to change and jump ship to Phillip Contreras, I'm going to ask you, are you still sticking your guns, thinking that Galen Lemei is going to win it?
Still sticking to my guns. I still don't see the amount of respect for combo that I'd like to see. Galen Lemei's deck, really powerful.
Even with Phillip Contreras having access to Mindbreak Trap?
Mind Break Trap actually in the board, I think in the post-board games that Galen might be a slight underdog. But once again, I think our narrative where we say if you're a heavy game 1 favorite and a slight game 2 underdog, you are still usually likely to win the match.
Okay, so you think he's a heavy favorite game 1. How heavy of a favorite is he game 1?
Well, let's put him around 2-1.
So you're saying 66%, right?
Yep.
And how much of an underdog do you think he is game 2?
I'll probably say he's about 40 to 45%.
Okay, that actually puts it on one side or the other of a coin flip. If he's 45% in the second game, it's actually a 52% match for Phillip. And if he's on the 40%, then it's a 47% match for Phillip. So you're basically talking about
it's pretty even.
The margin of victory here is a 5% margin of victory.
Well, once again, this is the problem, though, is that I'm estimating numbers.
Oh, yeah, you're guessing.
And the
guessing.
problem with the guessing numbers is that those 5% I'm giving to each of them, actually is fairly relevant as to determining where the favorite
to be fair,
is.
Both of your guesses could be off by a good, 5 or 10%.
My guesses are plus or minus 10. We don't know where the
Yeah.
matchup lies.
I mean, with those numbers, plus or minus 10 can put it anywhere between 70% for Galen, all the way down to 34% for Galen.
Right.
It's actually it's a pretty big swing. One of the things about math that's really interesting is that as you get through combinations, the influences of those combinations of events become far more surprising than you'd think. I've heard people make really funny claims like, oh, I've got a 50% chance of having a turn 2 3 casting cost spell, for example, whatever that might be.
Sure.
Maybe it's Geist of St. Traft or whatever. And they're like, I've got 8 birds, I've got 4 birds, 4 Noble Hierarch, and I've got 4 Geist of St. Traft. That makes it a 50% chance. The math actually doesn't work out
Not really.
like that.
You have to have them in the right combination. So when you have 2 unrelated events, usually you're looking at both of them, looking at a product of 2 probabilities, usually much lower in that situation.
And not to mention, the thing that most people never do when they try to do this math is include the right lands.
Very true.
I think one of the assumptions I generally make on this, having done the math on the 2-card combination in the opening hand where there are 4 ofs, it's about 47% for the first card and about 47% for the second card. You can call it 50% and 50%. So you're like, oh yeah, I've got a 25% chance of this happening. But that's not quite right, especially when you think about lands. Lands really gum that up.
Your lands have to, your lands do have to be able to produce the right mana. And you actually, what's more important is, so say you have this 2-card combo, you also have to throw out, okay, well say you have this 2-card combo in a 0-land hand. Because when you're saying 1 quarter, you're counting those as, a success, but most people wouldn't really call that a success. So maybe you think it's 25%, but once we throw out the hands that are very unplayable, you're probably looking at around 15 to 20 instead.
Phillip Contreras and Galen Lemei, once again, they have both looked at each other's deck lists. So they know exactly what each of the other has to offer each other in those 75 cards. If you're Galen Lemei, and you see 2 Spectral Flight on the list, and you know this is your finals opponent, does that make you more scared of Spectral Flight? Or does it make you kind of more dumbfounded at Spectral Flight?
Well, I mean, as long as we're talking about cards which show up in Innistrad Limited, to be honest, when I'm playing a non-creature deck, I'm probably happy that Spectral Flight and not Furor of the Bitten, for example. When there's no creatures in his deck, Spectral Flight really is just a +2/+2 for 2. The evasion not very relevant.
A pretty awesome comment from Joshua Milliken on Twitter. He says that everyone loses when Spectral Flight is involved. I kind of like that. For those of you who are wondering, I'm rooting for Phillip because I think as an aggro control deck, against a combo deck that has particular pieces it needs to put together, I like that matchup from an archetype perspective. I'm not rooting for it because it has Spectral Flight and State Limitation. Phillip mulliganing now to 6 cards.
And here we see Galen using his same strategy from the semifinal match.
This was a very good strategy.
Very good strategy where he hopes to play against 2 and 3 card hands.
I think if we count up, he got his opponent to mulligan 10 times in that match and almost lost.
Well. All right, Phillip Contreras, keeping on the 6-card hand. Galen Lemei on the play. Turn 1, playing, cracking his fetch land. If he has, I think there's another matchup. Do you think if he has 0 drop, say, Lion's Eye Diamonds, he probably gets rid of them on turn 1 to avoid a potential Spell Piercer Daze?
one of the first things I would do is look to see what would be able to disrupt that. There are 4 Casali Pride Mage, and then I'd ask myself, how often am I going to be going off before the Casali Pride Mage can blow it up?
Right.
So I think I would hold on to them.
Fair enough. Especially Casali Pride Mage being able to be a disenchant as early as turn 2 with the help of Noble Hierarch.
Preordain. I cannot make out what those cards are that are being preordained.
All right, still deciding on the preordain.
Both on top. That is a scary proposition.
Just what he wants. No spells, so no artifacts. And we see drawing Unstable Mutation for Phillip Contreras, and he has turn 1 Birds, not Noble Hierarch, but very close. One of the most important cards for Phillip is going to be Geist of Saint Draft. If he can make a turn 2 Geist of Saint Draft, turn 3 Unstable Mutation to leave up mana, that'll be enough to deal 20 damage easily. It'll be enough for the Geist to be a 3-turn clock, and then Phillip will just have to hope he can hold on with his disruption.
Turn 2 for Galen Lemei lays an island. The Haunted Pirate Ship.
The Haunted Island. All right, another preordain.
Just set up, set up, set up, set up. And again, the glare, or I should say the shadow makes it a little too difficult to see what we've got going on there.
Galen Lemei just sculpting here. At least one of the cards is an island, and I see Galen, at least with a volcanic island in his hand, probably will get rid of the extra mana source. So we'll see island go to the bottom, along with the other card, both cards to the bottom. So last time both at the top, this time both at the bottom. And draw 2 preordains. Usually it doesn't take much more than 2 preordains for Storm to set itself up. And a ponder.
He's using the fishy ponder. Are you a fishy ponder or a 3-moon ponder person?
I remember we talked about this yesterday. Fish is my choice, but I like to go for the full art, what I call the Spirit Bomb ponder.
The Spirit Bomb ponder. That always seemed ostentatious to me. Patrick Sullivan is a fishy ponder. Ponderer.
And you've already said you're a 3-moon ponder.
I'm a 3-moon ponderer.
For me, 3-moon ponder is a little too close to the literal interpretation of the card. Sometimes I don't like it when the art... I like the art to be flavorful, but not actually say what the card's doing.
I actually would love to have some altered 3-moon ponders with just 3 wolves hanging out in each of the moons. That would be sweet. And we're going to see what he does. Is it going to be a shuffle, or is he going to like exactly what he sees? I feel like, having been on the play and having this kind of sculpting, that Galen Lemei has basically spent almost what feels like a eternity of sculpting that he's probably very close to ready.
He has another ponder in this top 3, still deciding on it.
And I'm not talking about eternity in terms of the time that has spent. I'm talking specifically about how much manipulation that has happened here to the top of his library. I think he's probably very close to ready.
And he passes back the turn. So Phillip, now we get to see with a brainstorm. Hopefully he has one of his threats right now.
I don't think so.
No, he does not.
That's
so
a very
brainstorm.
sad moment there, I think.
Drawing 3. He does draw a Daze, though. He draws a Daze and a Troll setup. So now he should have Troll next turn.
Troll
with, and then with a backup of with Daze. I don't know if he has a Spell Pierce or any other sort of disruption. He probably will need a little more if he wants to be able to disrupt a Galen after with all the setup Galen's been doing.
We got a Wasteland that's going to use itself to kill that Underground Sea. Another ponder.
So maybe Galen not ready.
Well, that Wasteland does stymie him a little bit, I think.
Right, and as long as he can keep pace on lands, he should be okay. But yeah, that's true. It probably will cost him another turn due to Wasteland to really be ready to combo off. Judge now talking as Galen on his fourth 1-mana blue spell. He's issued a caution for slow play on Galen. Especially with these sorts of decks that are very complicated with all these effects, you really need to make sure that, you know, While making the right decision is essential, it's also important to have some idea of what you're doing and make sure that you keep a reasonable pace going. And Galen draws off the ponder. So when all the ponders never shuffle, ponder actually ends up being really nothing more than a cycle. So despite the fact that ponder seems like a lot of digging, if you do 2 ponders in a row and leave everything on top, you're really just cycling your cards.
Well, I mean, remember though, he did have a wasteland hit him before, and this shuffle effect is going to change that equation a little bit.
Yes. Once again, fetch lands, very interesting legacy combo decks. Not for their mana fixing quality, but for their resetting the deck property.
One of the things I find kind of fun about watching Phillip Contreras play, he taps and sacrifices the wasteland. A lot of people just kind of declare it and put it in the yard, and he did the same thing with the Windswept Heath. I just don't really see that little bit of flourish very often.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I don't think I usually tap my fetch lands, but they do have a tap symbol on them.
That's true. I kind of treat them like they just have a sack, only
like
use
0
when
colon. Yeah. So question here, Phillip has the option now of tapping out for Troll Ascetic. I don't believe he has an actual spell pierce.
I just do it. Get the clock down. Yeah. You've got the days. Get the clock down.
The bluff isn't worth enough to. So now he has Troll Ascetic. Next turn, Troll Ascetic will get a little unstable. Galen going down to 18. Each of those points count as Troll's clock with an unstable mutation on it is 654. It's a 15-point clock. So actually, Storm probably not going to deal 3 more damage to itself. So Phillip, if he wants that extra turn to make the 3-turn clock instead of a 4-turn clock, going to need some help from either something else in his hand. Interestingly enough, 1 Noble Hierarch changes that to, since it's from 654 to 765, it would be the lethal 18 damage. Alright.
Okay. I think I just saw a Cabal Ritual from Galen Lemei.
Galen Lemei, having played 2 ponders, last one he put all 3 on top, picked 1, then fetched to shuffle away. He's resolved 2 preordains beforehand and has a very well set up hand. So
here's the start.
Here we go, Lotus Petal. So if you're Phillip Contreras, you have one spell, right? What is it that you're looking to use it on?
Oof.
Is it the first ritual? Is it the last? Is it the money spell?
I mean, I think you basically, unless you have 2 dazes, what you have to do is make sure that you hit him in a position where it counts, and that depends entirely on how the mana is going. Like, for example, it doesn't really count right here. There's going to be time for Galen to use the rest of this, so that one has to resolve.
So when Galen's going off, I think the pivotal point is when Galen gets Past in Flames and flashes back the Past in Flames, and at post Past in Flames he flashes back his very first ritual. That's usually when he's shortest on mana and probably when the daze wants to come out.
Now, if you're wondering why our voices have dropped so much, it's actually shocking. We're in a really, really huge hall, and the other players are on the other side of the room, but because there's so few people here, it's very easy for our voices to carry, so we're trying to be very cautious to not kibitz the match and give away what people have in their hands.
9:30 here on the West Coast. For those of you still following on the East Coast, time to go grab a midnight snack.
Infernal Tutor can only grab a copy of a card you already have in your hand unless you have hexproof.
Unless you are hellbent.
Oh, pardon me, hellbent. The HE part was correct. We've been talking about
that for a second.
We've been talking about the hexproof deck all night. That the hexproof is still on my tongue. Yes, so, unless you are hellbent, which is to say empty-handed.
Or if you're playing Witchbane Orbs.
Yes, if you're playing Witchbane Orbs, it works out just fine.
Alright, so he grabs a second Cabal Ritual, revealing Cabal Ritual. Yes, there are 7 cards in the graveyard. The amount of mana he's going to make here really, I almost say what I think I'd want to see is him daze. The very first Cabal Ritual.
I completely agree. I think that this is the first opportunity he's going to have where it will matter, and so he should do it if he gets the chance.
What it does is it lets him take the last colored mana source away from Galen Lemei. Galen would not be able to cast a Past in Flames ready to get it because all his mana would be black.
Here is the moment. We're trying to be quiet, not to give it away. How do you feel about that? Are you going to let the Cabal ritual resolve? He says yes.
All right.
I don't like that. It might not matter at all because there is a Lion's Eye Diamond in Galen's hand.
If the last card is another Infernal Tutor, none of this will matter.
Any super tutor will do. Grim Tutor. Infernal Tutor.
If it is a Past in Flames, however... No, actually that'd be fine too, because it would get discarded and he could flash it back immediately. So I think with the fact that it's a Lion's Eye Diamond, it doesn't really matter. It seems like Galen Lemei will get this game regardless.
And there we have the Grim Tutor.
And
I'm not sure how much Grim Tutor is worth, but I'm pretty sure that that's a very valuable card.
Yeah. Quite a bit. So with that on the stack, does he make mana here? Does it matter?
At this point, given what Phillip Contreras has in his deck, I do not believe there exist any cards that he can have to stop the combo now.
No, this extra 5 black mana you see sitting in front of the Underground Sea, more than enough to deal with the daze that's in Phillip Contreras' hand.
And once again, we enter the period of time that I believe Matthias was calling...
Garbage time.
Garbage time.
The game is over, but it's not over yet. And yes, Past in Flames, more than enough Storm. Should be game 1 to Galen Lemei.
One thing about Phillip Contreras' opening hand, it was not particularly exciting.
No, and I think that's one of the things. A lot of his threats are all 3 drops, and there is this moment where he really has to tap out for them. You remember, this is only the 4th turn of the game for Galen Lemei. So Phillip's turns were Birds, Wasteland Brainstorm, Troll, and that brings us to where we are now.
At this point, winning is trivial.
All the cards in his graveyard have flashback.
He's playing them in a way I really like. He's basically showing him as though it was his virtual hand, as it is.
Right. And provided, as we saw in the semifinals, that he casts the Infernal Tutor with no cards in hand, this game should be his, which I'm sure we had a close call in the last semifinal. Galen Lemei playing his deck very well right now, building up his mana, and should be able to go in for the kill. So lots more mana, 3 more spells, 1, 2, 3 spells, and now Infernal Tutor. And all those spells now being played twice, same with Infernal Tutor. Past in Flames, Grim Tutor should make that 11 spells this turn, more than enough to deal with the 19 life points.
What do you think about Galen Lemei's build, given that it is not running a Burning Wish package, nor is it really pushing the Ad Nauseam package?
Well, as we're seeing here, you're right, he only really has the 1 Past in Flames and the 1 Ad Nauseam. One of the worries, I think, would be, something as simple as a Dissipate for the Past in Flames could prove to be, not the scene's play, but I mean, some sort of effect that, gets rid of the Past in Flames. Could be a little problematic for him. Possibly not, though. Something like a Termod's Crypt, perhaps.
It's a lot of mana.
It's a lot of mana. The Infernal Tutor. What did the Infernal Tutor get?
Now he goes Grim Tutor. I think he's just building up his Storm right now.
Is the Storm not enough already?
I think it was just a little bit shy.
Okay. Well, this should be easily 10. as all 5 of those exiled cards have been played twice this turn. Alright. And
Thoughtseize. Just to make sure. I mean, maybe
Fair
there
enough.
is a lot of stuff going on over there. Who knows?
And you know, I think if there was a main deck Mindbreak Trap, that would be how you get
Yeah.
around it. Though presumably it
Well-
would have been played earlier on the
well,
Past in Flames.
Absolutely. Here's one thing to remember, though, is that they might have looked at each other's deck lists, but the deck lists are not sitting in front of them. They don't get to
Right.
continuously consult
Okay.
those deck lists.
And kill you.
There you go.
So, game 1 to Galen Lemei over Phillip Contreras. So we talked a little bit earlier about sideboarding. Phillip Contreras has 1 Geta.
Well, before we even go to the sideboarding,
Sure.
we have a winner here for our game 1, Galen Lemei. And Galen Lemei taking out the very first of these two of the games in this final match here at the Star City Games Legacy Open.
Right.
And we have another winner that we'll be giving a prize to.
This
A
one's the big one.
amazing prize. The 4-day Gen Con badge.
All right, as we said before, Gen Con, one of the most. First
Pretty
of all,
awesome.
First of all, I believe was it that the
We can
Worlds
speak
is
up a little
I
bit.
believe Worlds is happening at Gen Con this year, is it not?
I think you're correct.
Yeah. So also, but more for the open events, the Vintage Championships, the Legacy Championships.
Yeah, I mean, the Vintage Championships has been a great event year after year. And I still remember actually in a fairly recent Vintage Championships with Owen Turtenwald winning, beating Bob Maher.
In
That
the
was
finals.
some great magic. And I'm not sure if you remember how he lost, how Bob Maher lost.
I want to say it was to Jace. But
No,
I'm not,
his own,
to his own Dark
Dark
Confidant.
Confidant. Now, for those of you who don't know, Dark Confidant is the invitational card of
Of
Bob
Bob Maher.
Great events happen
Yeah.
at Gen Con, and it's going to be August 16th through 19th. So if you cannot go to Gen Con, please do not enter into this final SCG Premium giveaway, because we would like this Gen Con badge to go to someone who will use it. A lot of people have called Gen Con the best 4 days in gaming.
And for those of you who are regulars at Gen Con, remember it is about 2 weeks later this year than it typically is, so keep that in mind.
The World Magic Cup is at Gen Con this year. So for all of you who have been watching along at home, this entire event, we've talked about the 2 different enchantments that Phillip Contreras has in his main deck. They are Unstable Mutation and Spectral Flight. Spectral Flight was a last-minute addition to Phillip Contreras' deck because he could not find what creature enchantment. He was
Good
looking
question.
for a creature enchantment. He couldn't find it. I'll give you a hint. This creature enchantment is in a different color.
Right.
Now, here he is, though, Phillip Contreras, in our finals. And he's playing Spectral Flight and Unstable Mutation. Spectral Flight was supposed to be what card at the beginning of the day? And instead, it's Spectral Flight. So, for all of the marbles, the 4-day badge giveaway for Gen Con, your answers need to go to that hashtag SCG Premium. And if you're one of the people that has the correct answer of what creature enchantment did Phillip Contreras intend to have in his deck instead of Spectral Flight, one of you will be the lucky winner of a 4-day badge for Gen Con. But back to our match at hand,
All right.
Phillip Contreras. I think it's no secret that Phillip Contreras, I'm sure that Galen is expecting Mindbreak Trap to come in.
So 2 Mindbreak Trap, 1 Gaddock Teague.
Right.
All very clear sideboards. Remember, he has no way to find the 1 Gaddock Teague. He's not running a Green Sun Zenith package, so he's going to just have to draw it.
Right. Now, on the other side of the table, the question is more open about what might happen that might be brought
Right.
in. So let's pretend that Galen Lemei might bring in Dark Confidant. I think that's a reasonable card to bring in, but let's say he might or might not. If you're Phillip Contreras, do you bring in any answers to a Dark Confidant?
I don't think so. The last thing you'd want to see is a Path to Exile in your opening hand. You still need to be fast in this matchup because you're 1 to 2 turns slower of a deck, and when you draw a card like Path to Exile in your hand, that doesn't really help the situation. The Dark Confidant is a great answer if Phillip has a hand that has a lot of hate in it. Dark Confidant is a very good card for Galen, but nonetheless, what you don't want to have is like answers for their answers in this matchup. You'd rather You know, because now that we're looking at Path to Exile only being relevant in situations where step 1, Phillip has hate, step 2, Galen has a Dark Confidant, and then step 3, Galen would have the Path to Exile. That's 3 things that have to happen at the same time. The likelihood is that situation just doesn't come up very much. So I would probably let him have his Dark Confidant if he wants it. If you're particularly worried about it, your counter spells can still be there. Your counter spells can counter Dark Confidant. So I think the 2 Mind Break traps and 1 Galactique likely coming in for the 3 Psy Blasts. On the other side of the table, if I were Galen Kamai, I would probably up my Thoughtseize count to 4.
I agree, definitely.
Just, you know, and outside of that, I'm not sure I'd even bring in the Dark. You need to have a Slaughter Pact because you need to kill it, be able to kill Galactique if he is to draw. Now it is a 1-of, so you don't have to care about it too much.
Why not just have it be a Chain of Vapor or an Echoing Truth?
Well, the thing is that there's not much to Echoing Truth or Chain of Vapor in the matchup. The only real targets to that are mana creatures and the enchantments, and I think I'd rather just have something that costs 0 as my answer, especially with Echoing Truth. I would not want to see my anti-Galactique card get dazed. I think I'd just rather have something that I knew would resolve.
That sounds totally reasonable.
So we have Phillip Contreras on the play this time. He's going to be looking for a hand with a turn 1 mana creature, almost for sure, and hopefully a good smattering of hate cards.
For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan. I'm joined here in the booth by Matthias Hunt. We're in the finals of the Star City Games Legacy Open here in Sacramento, California. On the left, Galen Lemei with Storm is up 1-0 versus Phillip Contreras, who is playing a hexproof Bant deck.
And this time, Galen's strategy finally backfiring on him. Galen is not a mulligan this time.
And for those of you who I have just joined our coverage in progress, Galen has had a very good luck with his opponents mulliganing so far in this top 8, with one of his opponents mulliganing to 2 in one game and to 3 in another.
Alright, so we're watching here. Galen pile shuffling quickly.
A little bit of friendly banter between the players. Galen Lemei, I think if I were Galen, when you're talking about an opponent who might have access to Mind Break Trap on top of the Daze and Spell Pierce, slow playing a little bit to try to get a Duress or a Thoughtseize off first seems very critical.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, I think Phillip Contreras, the cards that are critical for him, Geist of St. Traft and Mind Break Trap, I think are the big ones. Okay.
Alright, Phillip Contreras leading off on Wasteland. Interesting. Possibly, just if he doesn't have a mana creature, he's going to opt for, well, I'd just like to see maybe hoping just to get his turn 1 play.
A quick note to everyone out there in Twitterland, if you are trying to answer the premium giveaway, remember you need the hashtag SCGPremium.
Fetch land. Galen has to think about whether or not he wants to go get a land right away. If he's okay with the basic, he'll probably do it. But if he wants his 1 volcanic island, he might just wait. Looks though he wants some of his dig spells, so he'll probably just get an island here. Not let his... Last thing you'd really want to see is his mana get messed with. And it's a swamp. He probably has a... So he has a Duress or a Thoughtseize almost certainly here. And we'll soon get to see what it is that Phillip Contreras has decided to keep to fight against Storm with. Remember, Galen on a mull to 6. Galen does have an ad nauseum in his hand, I believe. So mulliganing to 6 might not be that relevant. What are you thinking? Does he use it or not? Remember,
there are very few cards that Phillip Contreras can cast on turn 2 off of a wasteland and any land.
very true.
Lotus
Battle.
my goodness gracious. Is he just going for it?
He's going to go for someone Dark Confidant.
Oh, there is the Bob.
And I like that play a lot, especially when Phillip Contreras is packing things like Days. Now, Phillip, surprisingly, has decided to keep in the Psionic Blasts and has one in his hand right now. So actually does have an answer for the Dark Confidant.
Bob says Dark Ritual. That's one damage, but a +1 on the cards. Duress.
All right, Duress. He's Phillip going to try to, I believe, hide that. Does not want. He's going to hide probably that Psionic Blast. He really wants to make sure that that Bob doesn't stick around.
I always have loved the art of Psionic Blast. It's just so entertaining. Oh, my head.
And he's also going to hide a Mind Break trap. So really, once again, Brainstorm's such a great card in Legacy, and this really showcases the strength of it right here.
And also the ways in which it really is a skills tester.
Yeah.
You know, what do you put back? When do you cast it?
Yeah.
I really love the fact that Brainstorm is legal in this format. A long time ago, we talked about how criminal it was that Brainstorm wasn't played more often longer ago in the day. But then when you actually look at lists, you start realizing there are almost no shufflers back in the day.
So at that point, this use of Brainstorm was probably one of the more prevalent uses. This is like considered one of the better uses of Brainstorm before it became more like an ancestral recall.
Oh, look at that.
Oh
Is
my.
that a protect everything?
Oh my. Well, I can't imagine why Phillip would have kept this hand against combo. Well,
Geist is a legend.
Geist, yeah, the second... Not a card he can take here.
He says
And,
go.
ooh,
There's not a
Galen
land
with
there.
no more
That makes
land.
me feel very... Mind Trap on top.
Now, what I don't like is I really wish that Phillip would have
my
put...
goodness gracious me.
What? Phillip
Look
hid...
at that. Okay, he lays a forest. What spell can he cast now?
He cannot cast any of his spells, Geist or Troll Ascetic. The bigger thing I have is that the Psionic Blast, he hit it 2 down. I was hoping that turn that he would Psionic Blast the Dark Confidant, but as it turns out, he's going to have to wait another turn on it.
He was planning on casting the Geist this turn and then doing the Psionic Blast the next turn. I don't have a problem with that, but he needed to have the right mana for it.
Right, which he didn't. Even so, I think I would have preferred the Psy Blast first, just because Galen is really stuck on one land.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, but I guess to be fair, when he Brainstorm hit his things, he did not know Galen didn't have another land.
That's true.
Galen using the extra card from Bob to get into a Flooded Strand and attacking. You might say the attacks seem pointless, but remember, every attack is one less storm he actually has to achieve with Tendrils of Agony.
Dark Confidant is one of those cards that it just always is so potent. I mean, there are very few times where you see people that are playing Dark Confidant that get rid of it from their deck. Now, Galen plans on a Game 1 being an entirely streamlined combo deck. But Game 2, knowing that he faces resistance, he uses this Dark Confidant essentially to push over the top of resistance with just more cards.
So an interesting dilemma that Phillip Contreras had here. Back when he played the Forest, we might say, well, that was the wrong land. But remember, the only way he could get the right land was by cracking a fetch land, thus stranding, the top of his deck still had one of those 2 cards. He hid on it. I'm not sure he wants to shuffle there. So while the hand's powerful, there's each play I think has a weakness to it.
We see the Geist. He wants to put the clock down.
I think at this point I'd still like the Psyblast more.
Well, you know, at this point, given how far things have gone, I actually am on the other side of the fence now.
Where maybe he said, okay.
Oh, we're going to see Ad Naz. Ritual.
And step Ad Nauseam.
And that's going to summon a Mind Break trap.
Ad Nauseam. He will
Now
have
remember, Ad Nauseam is removed from the game.
Yep. So, well, yes, and Galen, reminded of Ad Nauseam is
It's
exiled.
removed.
Once again, really the strength there of Mind Break trap. The scary part, if Galen had another land there, Mind Break trap wouldn't have been an answer. It could have been one Ad Nauseam Mind Break trap.
Right.
Bob draws another swamp, and then Galen draws another card.
Bob puts an interesting conundrum. The usual math, so to speak, on the decision about disruption and clock is clock, then disrupt. But Bob really punishes you for not getting rid of him.
Yeah. I think what Bob will essentially do here is Geist of St. Traft will be pretty much a hard 3-turn clock.
Well, Bob can just jump on the way.
Bob can jump on the way, but remember, Phillip has another Geist of St. Traft.
This is true.
And Galen's aware of this.
I think Galen might just march the Bob in there.
He has no intention of trading the Bob, so, well, let's deal the damage. No, actually, what I'm not as big of a fan of with pushing the damage there is it really gives Phillip the option of to whether or not he would like to trade the Geist or not. If you leave the Bob back to block, that puts the decision in Galen's hand of whether or not to trade them. So I think I actually would probably hang him back, even if he's already made it. I guess if he's already 100% made the decision that they're not going to trade, well then that's fine. It's probably the same both ways. But anyway, Geist of St. Traft crashes in for 6. And a third of Galen's life total. Galen being very careful not to get anything that can be wastelanded. So we have Chain of Vapor on the Angel. Chain of Vapor probably about as good on the Angel as it will be anywhere else. Chain of Vapor really only there to answer Gaddock Teague. Once you know that Phillip doesn't have the Gaddock Teague, well, gaining 4 life actually in this situation is buying a whole nother turn, which is about the kind of value you'd hope to get off Chain of Vapor. Pretty good play.
It's very reminiscent, actually, of Conley Woods versus Craig Wesco. Conley Woods making a very similar play in order to essentially...
Dispatch.
With Dispatch. In order to essentially buy enough time to kill Craig Wesco. Now, Chain does come with a bounce back power.
Which Phillip has used.
Yes.
If you sack a land, you can keep the Chain going. He brings the Bob back to Galen Lemai's hand, thus kind of denying Galen another draw with the Bob. Given in that case, would you still Chain of Vapor there if you're Galen Lemai? We are, I believe, we're on Phillip Contreras' attack step. I'm not sure. I might want the extra card.
I don't know enough of the makeup of Galen Lemai's hand right now to be able to really make a call on that. We're going to see what here? A Troll. Now the clock is up to 9 damage a turn. 2-turn clock for Galen.
Phillip Contreras having a Spell Pierce. I think I like Phillip's board state a lot here. Spell Pierce very similar to being a hard counter. Galen, though, having Infernal Tutor and Lion's Eye Diamond, maybe can actually punch his way if he just plays Lion's Eye Diamond on a separate turn right now, plays it, pays for the Spell Pierce, and then next turn combos. he might actually be able to combo off next turn. But he does have to have the read on Spell Pierce to do that. So Underground Sea for him gives him more options to help pay for Spell Pierce. And he does that. He does exactly that play, Lion's Eye Diamond. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not he's planning to combo out this turn, but at least now he has it down, free of Spell Pierce. And it looks like Galen Lemei is going to either recast Infernal Tutor or Dark Confidant. So we'll get to see whether or not... So he's thinking, if he plays the Infernal Tutor, he will find himself with meeting Spell Pierce in a way that he might not want to. Infernal Tutor in the situation, now that the Ad Nauseam is gone, always have pretty much finding Passion Flames. Galen Lemei still considering.
Doing some math. Remember, Galen Lemei has gotten a slow play caution so far this match.
He does have the problem that, you know, Wasteland will almost certainly get his Underground Sea. And he's going for it. He's casting Infernal Tutor with the Infernal Tutor on the stack, making 3 mana. Discarding the rest of his hand, which is Dark Confidant and a...
the sacrifice.
Actually,
the Lion's Eye Diamond is a sacrifice.
Yeah, he cannot
So
respond.
the Lion's Eye Diamond. Okay, hang on a second. That was a declaration of a sacrifice.
Yeah. Now, he actually has the Passion Flames in his hand. What is... Well, okay. So once the sacrifice is declared there, Galen's hand is gone.
That is a cost.
So we see, actually, the Passion Flames doesn't have to tutor for it. He already has the Passion Flames. It's now in his yard. So with the Lion's Eye Diamond making 3 red mana, we find Passion Flames number 5 mana to flashback. There's an Infernal Tutor now made into a Demonic Tutor on the stack. But a Spell Pierce in Phillip Contreras' hand. What card does he get? My guess, I have a vote.
I think he's getting a second Ad Nauseam.
I think he doesn't. Maybe. What about the vote?
Wait, did Phillip flash his hand enough for it to...
No.
Earthquake.
What if he gets Lion's Eye Diamond here?
Okay, and to go for the Passion Flames?
Because Passion Flames is 5 to flashback, he needs to fight his way through 1 Spell Pierce, but because he has Dark Rituals in his graveyard, I believe 1 Lion's Eye Diamond may be enough to fight through all the hate. Actually, the problem with it will be that his mana will end up being the wrong color. He can fight through the Spell Pierce and the 5 mana flashback, but then to start his chain of rituals again with Dark Ritual, his mana will unfortunately be black, and with no way to make him, which actually, he has an Infernal Tutor in the yard.
He'll be able to do it.
I think the correct play here is to get Lion's Eye Diamond.
What are the spells he has cast thus far this turn?
This turn,
Lion's Eye Diamond and Infernal Tutor?
He cast Lion's Eye Diamond and Infernal Tutor this turn. But with Phillip Contreras at 12, he really doesn't need it. It's not the Storm he's so worried about. If he casts Passion Flames out of the yard, 2 Dark Rituals, and tutors up his Tendrils, that should be enough. I think LED should get him the match. He's asking the judge a question. And he's still figuring out what to get here. It's a Demonic Tutor, so he can get anything he wants. Remember, he will need 5 mana to cast Flashback this Passion Flames, and actually his first Lion's Eye Diamond only made black mana. So I think his every intention was to get a Lion's Eye Diamond, as he doesn't have any red yet. And we'll see momentarily what he has gotten.
With an empty hand, a Lion's Eye Diamond might as well say Black Lotus.
Dark Confidant. Now, walk it through me here. Did we just see him? Did he just miss a win?
I think he did.
If he gets Lion's Eye Diamond, it makes 3 red mana.
And isn't it kind of embarrassing to cast a Dark Confidant after you've discarded a Dark Confidant to your Lion's Eye Diamond?
Right, now, well, I think it seems like he believes. Yep. Now, really, to be fair, he has now put the Past in Flames. Yeah, I don't like that line at all. I think that getting another Lion's Eye Diamond there should be 3 red mana. Flashes back Past in Flames, leaving a black open. After he pays for a Spell Pierce, plays Dark Ritual, up to 5 mana. That's actually, it's not enough mana then. It's only up to 5.
Okay,
So
he
doesn't
short.
have enough mana.
He was short then, so it was not a kill because of the Spell Pierce.
Because then he can't go get the Tendrils.
What is he hoping to draw then now?
Well, the good news he has, oh, I don't like Dark Confidant making a block here. I'm not sure what draw he's on. I think we're going to be seeing game 3. What I don't like about that play is his other line may have been dead to Spell Pierce, but he didn't know that his opponent had Spell Pierce. So this line, it's almost like he's conceding that he won't combo out without even seeing the reason why he wasn't going to.
Ponder. And I think we're going to see the next game happen.
So yeah, 1, then to 3, then to 5. Now he should be 1 mana short if he goes on that line.
Game 3.
Okay, so Phillip Contreras, Galen Lemei tries to go off, ends up missing, and game 2. The interesting thing though, there's no randomness to that. When he began going off, he must have known, was his plan all along to go to get a Dark Confidant?
That couldn't have been it. I think he, if you remember, there was that moment where he sacrificed it and then tried to put it back in play.
I think he realized that he didn't want to do it, but it was too late.
I think he realized he really didn't want to sacrifice it, but he had already clearly declared the sacrifice of the Lion's Eye Diamond, and then after doing so, I think he was in a position where what he felt was, what do I do now?
Where at that point there's no going back. Yeah, not many plays available for him.
I mean, the thing about using the Lion's Eye Diamond, I believe, and I'm not 100% sure of this, that he put the die in front of something to declare there were colors being involved.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty clear.
That shows intent, and most judges will rule that that means you're sacrificing it.
And if you sacrifice it, goodbye cards.
Remember, it's not exactly the same as tapping a land. Tapping a land is a reversible play because it's a declaration of casting a spell. When you're not actually just casting something though, I believe when a sacrifice effect is involved, I don't think it's a reversible. It's not a reversible action. So game 3, Galen Lemei being on the play.
Does anything change in terms of Galen Lemei's sideboarding now that he's on the play?
Now that he's on the play, Galen Lemei still has, we think, probably sideboarding in. We know he's sideboarding in the Dark Confidants. No, not really. I think he's still on the same game plan.
So now that you've seen the Dark Confidants, is there anything that you do differently from Phillip Contreras' standpoint?
I don't think... Well, Phillip Contreras surprised me when he kept in the Psionic Blasts, but they turned out... he turned out to actually never end up using it on the Dark Confidant, which makes me think if the Psionic Blast is too slow for the Dark Confidant, which it seems to be there, I think I agree with him not Psi Blasting it, well, then what is it doing? Because I don't think it's fast enough. I think it's too slow to go to Galen's face. If it's too slow to go to the face, too slow to the Confidant, maybe it's just not the card you want.
Yeah, and now, one of the things with that, I mean, what about a card like, say, bringing in one single Umezawa's Jite as a means to control all potential Dark Confidants? And it's a slow play the play you cast it, but if you only bring in one, it will never actually have a problem with being a second copy. And then once it's in play, you can use it to control all Dark Confidants, as well as potentially increase your clock. I'm not saying it's necessarily, I'm just thinking about, as a brainstorm,
Yeah.
is it worth thinking about?
It's definitely an interesting strategy. I think it would depend how slow you believe the matchup to be post-board. It certainly helps lock Galen out of the game, and there are draws where it'll be very good. What you don't want to have happen, I think, is have a draw where you really need a threat, or you really don't a game where you don't have time to cast it. Then it becomes a non-card.
Well, I mean, it's not a non-card if you get to connect with it even once.
Because
That's 4 life.
4 life, with Galen's particular build of Storm, unlike Ant, which can typically go off for large quantities, he does have 1 ad nauseam, but Galen, because he's playing the Passive Plains version, oftentimes doesn't have too many Storm to spare. 4 life can be a turn in some situations. Alright, so both players shuffling. This will be the last down to the finals of the Legacy Open Star City Games Sacramento. I'm Matthias Hunt here with Adrian Sullivan. And we are watching Galen Lemei battling his way with Storm all the way through Stoneforge Mystic, Stoneblade, then through Goblins. Phillip Contreras first beating Show and Tell, then beating Agrolome, both on pathways to the top 8. Very diverse metagame, as you heard, see 6 different decks there in the top 8. We had 7 different decks in the top 8. Also had Maverick and a second Stoneblade.
I really was kind of excited for the possibility of Goblins winning, mostly because I thought that the Goblins build that we saw in this top 8, the Pyrokinesis, Tuk Tuk, Kiki Jiki, just seemed really, really interesting.
Yeah, and a very close, we figured, almost, if had Storm had a very close match, I believe, against his Stoneblade opponent. And if so, Goblins would have had a path of Stoneblade, ban Taxproof, which is, you know, his metagame choice probably would have paid off.
Still here, the finals competitors, a couple of their friends, our head judge, and then Star City Games luminaries of Ricky Hayashi, Nicholas Sabin, Jeremy Noel over to this side, our esteemed director. Galen mulling to 6 cards. We have now passed the 12-hour mark for these competitors here today.
Certainly fatigue becoming an issue.
Phillip Contreras looking up to the sky to make sure he doesn't accidentally see any of Galen's cards as he shuffles. And Galen Lemei on the play, 6 cards, hoping to find 6 better cards than he found before. That's okay. It sounds like what he's saying there.
Yep. Once again, if he has a Dark Confidant, it should be able to recoup him some of the cards he's losing. And here we go. Galen Lemei on 6, Phillip Contreras on 7. Here are the finals. We start out with Scalding Tarn, and it's going to go straight for a land, either for a Ponder effect or a Thoughtseize effect. We'll see one of the two soon.
I would be more likely to believe a Ponder or a or a Lotus Petal for a Dark Confidant on top of this.
Right.
Putting into play a dual land opens him up to Wasteland, and that can be a little dangerous.
Only 2 Wastelands being packed by Phillip Contreras, but they're so punishing for the Storm deck when it happens. So, Scalding Tarn, bring him to 19. Picking out a land, unsure, basic, non-basic. Blue, prominent red, just blue.
And there's the haunted pirate ship island.
Alright. Me seeing some sort of blue cantrip from Galen Lemei. And he will...
Ponder?
Ponder.
And the Fishy Ponder. Ponder, one of the best search cards for a combo deck.
Mm-hmm. Much like Brainstorm, it's one of those search cards that gets so much better when you play fetch lands. I know when they were both in Standard, usually people considered Preordained to be the stronger search spell, but once fetch lands into the equation, I would have to give the nod to Ponder.
I'm not sure if it's so straightforward, but regardless, I think that when you're also talking about only looking for very specific cards with a very short window of a game, Ponder is definitely better.
Ponder's an excellent card for that, which I guess in Legacy, certainly the format tends to lend itself toward things that want to do that. Ponder, there is a fetch land in his top 3. Yep, puts him on the back, draws. Yep.
And leaves him on top, takes a card.
Alright, and that will be the turn. Phillip Contreras.
The best opening line that Phillip can do, I believe, is to lay a turn 1 mana accelerator. There it is. Follow up by a turn 2 beater, which would be Geist of Saint Traft, and then take care of things with a clock plus counters.
Remember, one of the questions we have to ask is what hate is in Phillip Contreras' hand? Because as a slower deck, that's going to be very important. Phillip is playing a
main phase Brainstorm.
Yep,
The best kind.
with the fetch land up. Phillip has a Spell Pierce in his hand. He also has an Unstable Mutation in his hand. That one maybe not as relevant right now.
There's a Tendrils in Galen Lemai's hand.
Maybe sometimes a card you want to... Usually a card you don't want to see. Usually just a card you want to tutor for, actually. Yep, he's gonna... I think the Tendrils is gonna get put back away. It's not its time yet. And cracking a fetch land. Probably for black this time. Yep. Once again, keeping himself wasteland proof. Only wants about 2 or 3 lands when he combos out, but the difference between, 2, he needs to be at 2, not at 1. And we have...
Thoughtseize or a Duress?
Some sort of... I think so.
Lotus
Petal, maybe Dark Confidant. Or he wants to be sure that it doesn't get dazed, I believe.
That's fair. Thoughtseize. Phillip handing the hand face down.
We have Windswept Heath, Spell Pierce, Geist of Saint Traft, Unstable Mutation, Psionic Blast, Kasali Pride Mage. So really, if he has the combo in his hand, the only card he must care about is probably the Spell Pierce.
I'm very thankful to Galen Lemei for laying him out like that. That's a Kasali Pride Mage, Unstable Mutation, Psionic Blast, Geist of Saint Traft, Windswept Heath, and Spell Pierce, just like you said. Good eyes there,
Ooh.
Matthias.
So what we're looking at is Galen Lemei is seeing that next turn, the probable play is Geist of Saint Traft, followed by Unstable Mutation holding up Spell Pierce. So he's got to interact with that line. I don't think it's right to take the Geist. I think because of the presence of Kasali Pride Mage, Phillip will have access to a large enough beater to end the game. I'd probably take the Spell Pierce and go straight for the kill.
That seems fairly reasonable. However, one of the things to think about is so many cards that could be drawn by Phillip. If you knock out the Geist, what it might be able to do is increase the number of cards you can draw.
That's very true. A lot of it based on what turn Galen thinks he's going to be trying for the kill.
Absolutely. In a way, this makes it very similar to Burn when it comes to your decision making, where you're trying to maximize the ability to kill someone by a specific turn. Not necessarily the most damage now, but the damage over time.
So
whatever.
So the jig's up. Galen, now knowing that Phillip's whole hand -1 card, says, let's get the Geist out there. We know Galen now knows Phillip doesn't have a Spell Pierce, or is fairly certain of it, I suppose. There's one unknown card, but,
Only 3 cards in Galen's hand.
And Phillip Contreras' hand is still the same one we saw last time. His most recent draw was a forest, so no new action, really.
Now remember, Phillip Contreras is going to be threatening a 2-turn clock for these next 2 turns.
Yes, it looks like a 3-turn clock. Remember, there is an unstable mutation, which will probably go, on the Geist of St. Traft, thus making the first attack 9 damage, the second attack 8 damage, which is 17, enough for the kill. So Galen will have 2 turns to go off with. Good to know for the Storm player usually means that, provided he has to then think, well, do I want to go off now? I get an extra, or the next turn, which means he can have an extra card as long as he doesn't mind Phillip having one.
Unstable mutation seems shockingly good, actually, in this deck.
It's a, well, over the course of 2 attacks, it's essentially Lava Axe for 1 blue.
Yeah.
Not a bad card. I suppose if you could play 4 of them, the,
We chose not to play 4.
Well, I mean, if you had 4 Lava Axes at 1 blue.
Yes. Fair.
Galen's going to... So I think if I'm Galen, I probably wait 1 more turn. I think that 1 more draw benefits Storm a little more than it benefits Bant Hexproof.
Even if there's the possibility of a counterspell?
Well, for every possibility of a counterspell, there's
1 unknown in Phillip's hand already.
Right. You know, if I told you that you could have a random card out of this list for a random card out of this list, I think I'd take it. Galen disagrees.
I think Galen is just setting up. He's setting up for next turn. He shows a Cabal ritual with the Infernal Tutor, has 2 Cabal rituals, and 1 unknown card.
If he's just setting up, I really like that play. Let's see.
I think he's just setting up. I think it's saves 2 mana for the eventual go-off.
Yeah, that's actually a very strong play.
On the other hand, he will have enough to be at threshold for his Cabal rituals. So that would mean he would have access to 5 and then to 7 mana.
Yeah, and he's not, and I don't think he's waiting. I think he's going for it.
Pardon me, that'd be 5 and then 8 mana.
So let's look this up. If he has it, if he goes for it right now. What is his source of non-black mana?
I think he's gonna go for Ad Nauseam and draw some stuff.
All right, that's good too. I can risk that actually. So the line of play we're looking at is Cabal Ritual, Infernal Tutor, Ad Nauseam. Both Cabal Rituals going to 5 mana, then going to 8. So with 1 black mana over the top, Ad Nauseam. That should be enough, I believe, to... And we get to play the game of, is Ad Nauseam going to be enough? Usually it is, not always, though. Phillip Contreras, essentially, for those who play Moto, essentially has hit F6 for this turn, meaning he has no way to interact.
We haven't seen his hand. Oh, we do know his hand. It's a
We
forest.
do. Galen Lemei does not know it, but he doesn't have the luxury of playing around the Mindbreak trap. So he's just, right here, when this resolves,
5.
Galen at this point probably knows that the spell is not Mindbreak Trap or Daze. Phillips has no answers.
5 becomes 3, becomes 8.
It looks for the 8 on D6.
I can't find it.
Phillip reaches over, hands him another die. I think he was just prepaying for his next spell, but... And here we go. It's time to...
Infernal Tutor going to 1, or sorry, to 6. This is going to get, I believe, an Ad Nauseam to go to 1.
Ad Nauseam, a very powerful card. The flavor on it is very eerie if you've actually ever read the card.
You mean, is there flavor text on it?
There is flavor text on it. The flavor text reads, so it reads, he stopped calling it his life's work once it continued into his undeath. And
that's nice.
And the art on it, relatively creepy, but in this situation, relatively powerful too. And here we go. So with 15 life, Galen has 1 black mana over the top, 15 life to burn through. Spells so far played this turn. He has played 1, 2, 3. This is his 4th spell of the turn. No, his fifth spell. He started with Infernal Tutor, so he has 5 spells. He really just doesn't need to find too much.
There's an Underground Sea, another Ad Nauseam.
So that puts him down to 10.
That was a pretty rough one. Lines of Diamond's good.
9.
Foxies.
9.
0 on the Slaughter Pact.
8.
It's looking pretty weak, actually.
7. 6.
There's a second Lion's Eye Diamond.
Remember, he only has 2 ad nauseam, so he can keep flipping. 4. He does not have... He could flip Tendrils to lose now. 3.
Oh my gosh. That was a really poor set of cards to ad nauseam to.
He has found plenty of black mana. 2. And he is... Alright,
Oh my
Phillip
goodness.
Contreras.
Wow.
Ad nauseam. And that is your match.
Oh my goodness.
Galen Lemei looking for Lotus Petal.